Welcome to the Irish NFL Show's divisional preview. We've looked at both the NFC South and the NFC West. You can find those previews, incidentally, wherever you get your podcasts. And please remember to like and subscribe. But now we move to the NFC East. Brian and Kieran, the resident Giants fans, obviously have a special interest in this division. And alongside Noel and myself, Connor, we're going to get stuck into a division that was topped by the Cowboys last year and sent the Eagles to the playoffs as a wild card. Both of those teams going one and done, of course, in the playoffs in January. Before we get stuck in, though, we would also like to thank QuinnBet for their continued support and partnership. Very much looking forward to having them on board again for the season ahead, and great to have them with us through the off-season too. But let's start our NFC East preview with last year's champs, the Cowboys. And Noel, a lot of questions this year, particularly on the contract situation. Huge amount of focus, obviously, on Dak, who'll be a free agent in theory next season. And they have a really, really difficult decision to make there, because you finally got to pee or get off the pot here with Dak and decide, is he the man, or are you prepared to go into the quarterback sweepstakes?
Yeah, no, this is a really interesting one now. I mean, obviously Dak and his people did a fantastic contract last time, and he comes in now last year, the contract, no trade clause, he can't be franchise tagged. We look at the quarterback deals that are getting done at the moment. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence just got done there. We're looking around, 55 million is that kind of top end. And you've got to think that Dak and his people are going to be looking at this. And the Cowboys maybe missed the trick here by letting it go so long, because now they found themselves, we know how important quarterbacks are in this league. So what do they do at this stage? You look at the records. Obviously, they win 12 games every year for the last 3 seasons. So they're winning games until they hit the playoffs, and then it's just not happening for them. And it was a disappointing result for them last year against the youngest team, which was Green Bay at home. So you're kind of at that crossroads now. Like, do you want to pay Dak, what will probably be upwards of 60 million a year average? Is he that kind of quarterback? Is he a top 5-6 quarterback you want to pay that to? For me personally, he's not. He's maybe top 10 for me, which is still productive. But the Cowboys then have the question of, if they don't give him this money, what do they do? Do they start again? We know there are other contracts right behind them there, 2 other players who are going to be looking for big, big money as well. So they're at a tricky spot now. I mean, is the juice worth the squeeze with Dak? Is he worth 60 million average a year? Or do the Cowboys need to look at this now and say, do you know what? It's just not worth that kind of money. We have other people to pay. We have a cap situation that's not great. Maybe it's time, we haven't gone as far as we wanted with Dak. Maybe it's time to kind of move on from there. So it will be fascinating to see what they do. But they've done this to themselves. They've let them get in this situation with 3 different players who could be looking 2 or 1 is probably the best player in his position and could be one of the best players in the league. And the other two,
this could nearly change the face of the league. You've got, if all that talent hits the market, the 2 other players that you're talking about, I'm guessing, are CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons. I mean, either of those are absolute franchise changers.
No, they are absolutely. And the Cowboys, I say, have backed themselves into a corner now, because look, we all know Micah Parsons is going to want that Nick Bosa money. He's going to want to be the top paid player in his position and potentially in the league outside of quarterbacks. CeeDee Lamb had a great season last year. Now, you're not paying him Justin Jefferson money, but he's going to ask. So you're going to be backed into that corner, and you're going to look at the other contracts that have been done recently with wide receivers, and he's going to want to be up there on the back of last season. And then you have Dak. So it's a tricky situation now for the Cowboys. Plus, you look at Mike McCarthy going into his last year of a contract. He's winning a lot of regular season games, but he's not winning playoff games. So it feels like the Cowboys are at a bit of a crossroads here. They've done very little work in the offseason in terms of income and with a lot of outgoing. So I think they're in for it's going to be interesting to see what the Cowboys' plan is here going forward and how it actually affects them as the season starts.
Brian, let's take up that point, if you don't mind, because the case for the defense of the Cowboys is they get to the dance every year, right? They're not doing an awful lot wrong in the regular season. People can talk about them being flat track bullies, but they're consistently posting double-digit wins. They're getting to the playoffs in good stead. And it's not working out for them there, and that clearly is a conundrum, and it's clearly not where Jerry Jones wants to be. On the flip side, you look at them and you say, did we really think they were only 1 player away or 2 players away last year or even the year before? They don't seem to be getting any closer, and I'm not seeing anything that they necessarily did in free agency or potentially in the draft. And look, we remain to see how that pans out, to be fair, as we do with every team. But I'm not necessarily seeing anything that says to me, yeah, they've moved closer.
No, but I think the people within the organization feel they are very close. And I suppose that is the bone of contention for a lot of Cowboys fans, that they haven't essentially doubled down on it. Like everybody kind of got carried away with the difficult defeat, because that's the nature of the Cowboys over the last 3 years. 3 divisional round games, 3 defeats, 3 seasons, as Noel's alluded to, where they've won 12 games each season consistently. And yet last year they brought in Brandon Cooks. They did the trade for them. They brought in Stephen Gilmore. So it looked like they were thinking, we're not too far off here now. We just need to kind of bring in some players that will put us over the top here. And essentially, you could argue they did do that. They've won the division, albeit I know we're going to come to the Eagles shortly in terms of their second half of the season. You got Cowboys fans who are looking at it. There's 2 elements you just touched on there. 12-win seasons. Most of us here would love to have 12-win seasons consistently, but yet the expectations from the
ownership. Out of about 3 seasons to get to that, Brian.
Well, very much so. Certainly for our teams, the way things have transpired over the last 3 to 4 years, but it's a difficult one. And then looking at Noel's right, like they've lost a lot of players. Like Tony Pollard running back, you could argue he didn't have the most successful season last year. I suppose it's the bell cow running back. You lose Tyron Smith, offensive line to the Jets. Armstrong, an edge rusher has gone to the Commanders. And then obviously we touched on it briefly recently, given the number of offensive line guys that have moved on. And, whilst they're moving on, they're remaining within the division and they're going to play for Dan Quinn in Washington. It's going to be so interesting to see. This is a team, I think by and large, when we do our divisional reviews and look ahead to the season, we all kind of have a feeling for certain teams. But right now, genuinely, I couldn't say whether this Cowboys team is going to be back winning 12 games. I think Dak has answered a lot of questions actually last year. I thought there was games in which people felt he never seems to win those big games, but he took care of the Eagles on a Sunday night. He took care of the Lions on a Saturday night. There has been games where he's gone out and proven he is arguably a franchise quarterback, but no, it's right. Like the money is ludicrous now.
They didn't lose that game to the Packers because of anything that he didn't do particularly, to be fair to him. Like it was, the Packers absolutely ate them up on offense. That supposedly vaunted Cowboys defense couldn't do anything.
They were on the back foot from early because the defense allowed the Packers immediately go 75 yards on the opening drive, and Aaron Jones runs the ball down the gut, and he does the same thing on the next drive, where albeit a brief drive by the Cowboys. They never got going whatsoever in that playoff game, and I think there was a lot of questions asked of the defense more so. And Dan Quinn was under the spotlight, and he went from one of the head coaches that was highly sought after to kind of, he moved down the food chain very quickly, and a lot of people put it on him as opposed to the offense. But by and large, I think Cowboys fans are confident enough that Dak can bring them forward. But ultimately, is he going to be there next season? That will be the biggest question, I'd imagine, come January 2025.
Kieran, can you take up that thread? I know you're a man not known for his strong views on quarterback play, but is Dak actually the guy or not?
Well, I think for the Cowboys he is right now, because who else is there out there? I mean, they the big question they have is, obviously, like we've talked already, how much is he going to command? It's going to be south. I mean, it's not going to be north of 60 a year, the way that things are shaping out. The other thing to bear in mind is who's back there, who's come through in the draft next year, who's out there for free agency. We know they didn't do a lot with free agency this past offseason. And yeah, he's got all his detractors, and we did talk about it wasn't his fault against the Packers, but if you cast your mind back the season before that against the Niners, that was not a one shiny moment for Dak. A lot of questions around not just Dak but Mike McCarthy. That's where I'm kind of zeroing in on the hot seat. I mean, I don't think a lot of people thought he was going to survive the cut after the end of last season. He's managed to get into Jerry's good graces. So he's managed to get one more season. He is the lame duck. And the question will be, will he last the season? Because Jerry famously doesn't really cut people. I think he's only cut Wade Phillips during a season. He's kept a lot of coaches on a little longer than he should, maybe, especially Jason Garrett. But how long is he going to get that rope?
He's now cut an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator as there's 2 scapegoats in the last 2 seasons. Right. The next letter you open is your own resignation letter, right? And
what's interesting to see is the Cowboys have Schottenheimer as the OC and Mike Zimmer, former head coach, who's so if anything does go pear-shaped. Now, the good thing for them is they start off with the Browns, and they have the Saints, the Ravens, and the Giants. So they technically, we wouldn't be surprised if they start 3-1. But will McCarthy last the season? Jerry's not getting any younger, and his patience is getting thinner by the year, just like his hairline. And I don't think I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility that by Thanksgiving or even Halloween, if it's not looking great, because they have made a lot of kind of steps backwards, losing Tyron Smith and Tyler Biadasz on the line, two stalwarts on the O-line. Those are two huge losses. Rico Dowdle, is he really the guy that's going to help Zeke Elliott get those yards needed? I did see earlier on that they're looking at Khalil Herbert as a free agent to pick up possibly. That's where they are right now. Is that really what the Cowboys – is that the three-headed monster that the Cowboys want having there? No one's going to doubt the defense, but I think that the losses they've had in free agency are going to ultimately come back and bite them. Yes, they'll make the playoffs, whether it is the free agents, whether it is the wild card, but it's definitely a step backwards for me this year for the Cowboys.
All right, this is the Irish NFL Show's NFC East preview. We're looking ahead to the 2024-2025 season. We've done the Cowboys. We now move through to the Philadelphia